Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. I never thought I'd question my marriage over something as small as a wedding ring. When Savannah told me she lost it, I wanted to believe her. After all, it was an innocent enough explanation. "I've lost weight, Alex," she said, her voice calm and casual as she tossed her purse onto the kitchen counter. "It must have slipped off on my way home. I didn't even notice until I looked at my hand and it was gone." She even smiled, as if it was no big deal. But to me, it was. That ring had been a symbol of us, of the promises we made when we stood before everyone we loved and swore loyalty to each other. Now, it was gone, and the excuses felt too easy. I didn't press it though. Not that night. Maybe it was my own fear, my desire to hold on to whatever semblance of peace we had left. But as the days turned into weeks, things felt off. Savannah's demeanor shifted. She seemed more distant, her late-night work meetings more frequent. I tried to shake the gnawing feeling in my gut, telling myself that I was overreacting, that she would never do anything to betray me. Until one morning, 2 months later, when everything changed. "Need a ride to work, man?" Evan's voice crackled over the phone. He was one of my closest friends, the kind of guy I'd known since childhood. Our lives had always run parallel: high school, college, jobs, marriage. His offer to pick me up was routine, but that day felt anything but. As I settled into the passenger seat of his car, something shiny caught my eye on the floor near the back seat. At first, I didn't think much of it, but something about the glint pulled my attention. It looked familiar. Too familiar. "Hold up, Evan, can you stop for a second?" I asked, leaning down to reach for the small object. "What's up?" he responded, pulling the car over to the curb. I picked it up, my heart pounding in my chest as I turned the ring over in my hand. There, inside the band, were the tiny engravings that confirmed it, my wedding date and Savannah's initials. "What the hell is this doing here?" I muttered, more to myself than to Evan. He stiffened. I could see his grip tighten on the steering wheel. "What do you mean?" This is Savannah's ring. Her wedding ring. She said she lost it." My voice trembled with disbelief, but deep down, the truth was already forming, ugly and undeniable. Evan's silence hung in the air like a dark cloud. The pit in my stomach grew as I watched his face pale, the telltale signs of guilt etched across his features. I don't know, man," he stammered, avoiding eye contact. "Maybe she dropped it when we all hung out last weekend." But we hadn't all hung out. Savannah hadn't been there, and he knew that as well as I did. His excuse was as flimsy as hers. The realization hit me like a freight train. Savannah hadn't just lost the ring. She had left it. In his car. With him. That night, I confronted Savannah. She was sitting on the couch, legs curled up under her as she flicked through her phone. She didn't even notice me standing there until I spoke. "Found your ring." Her head snapped up. "What? Where?" "In Evan's car." The words came out colder than I intended, but the hurt and betrayal were bubbling under my skin, threatening to boil over. Her face drained of color, the mask of calm slipping just for a moment before she tried to recover. "I can explain." "I don't want to hear it, Savannah. Not right now." My hands clenched into fists. I had to hold it together, but the rage was palpable, burning in my chest. For months, she had been lying to me. For months, she had been sharing something sacred with my best friend, and now it all made sense. The distance, the missing ring, the late nights. It had all been right in front of me, and I had ignored it, hoping for the best. But now, I knew better. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of Savannah's soft sobs from the guest room. I had thrown her out of our bedroom, and honestly, part of me wished I could throw her out of the house right then and there. But there was more at stake: my dignity, my pride. I needed to think, to plan. This wasn't going to end with just her leaving. No, Savannah wasn't going to walk away from this without feeling the consequences of her actions. She had shattered our marriage, our trust. But I wasn't going to let her walk away without paying for it. I was going to get back at her. For every lie. For every stolen moment she shared with Evan. She would regret ever betraying me, and by the time I was done, she'd have nothing left. The revenge plan was already forming in my mind. I had to be smart about it. The divorce would be the final blow, but there was more to be done before that. She had to feel the pain she caused me. And so did Evan. They wouldn't see it coming. The morning after discovering Savannah's betrayal, I couldn't shake the anger that coursed through my veins. It wasn't just the fact that she cheated, it was with him, Evan, the guy who had always been in my corner. The sheer disrespect of it all was like a knife twisting deeper with each thought. As I got dressed, every movement felt robotic, like I was on autopilot. My mind was elsewhere, strategizing my next move. Savannah hadn't come out of the guest room all morning. I could hear her moving around, probably avoiding me. Good. I didn't want to see her right now anyway. There was too much to process, and I needed to keep my head clear. I left the house without saying a word to her, just as she probably expected. The quiet tension between us hung like a storm cloud, heavy with the anticipation of the inevitable confrontation. I drove to the one place where I knew I could think, the small coffee shop down the road where I used to go to clear my head. As I sat down with my cup of black coffee, I began to sketch out the plan in my mind. Savannah and Evan had disrespected me, shattered my life as if it meant nothing. It wasn't enough to just walk away and leave them to their devices. No, I wanted them both to pay for what they did, and not just emotionally. They had to feel it, deep in their souls, the way I felt it when I found that damn ring. I glanced down at my phone, fingers hovering over Evan's number. He hadn't called since yesterday, probably thinking I hadn't connected the dots yet. Typical. I smirked, imagining his face when he realized I wasn't as naive as he hoped. I clicked on his contact and hit dial. It rang twice before he picked up, his voice far too casual for my liking. "Hey, Alex. What's up, man?" "Hey, Evan. Listen, I've been thinking about everything. Savannah and I talked last night. We're still working through some things, but I figured we could all get together soon. Clear the air, you know." There was a pause on the other end, just long enough for me to imagine the panic rising in his chest. Yeah, that sounds good. When were you thinking?" "Tomorrow night. I'll cook. We can just hang out like old times." I tried to keep my voice even, almost cheerful. "What do you say? 8 sound good?" "Sure. Sounds great, man," he said, though I could hear the edge of nervousness creeping into his voice. "Perfect. See you then." I hung up before he could offer any more fake pleasantries. The next step was to confront Savannah properly, and that wouldn't happen without a confrontation. She couldn't hide in the guest room forever, and I wasn't about to tiptoe around her. When I got home, I found her sitting at the dining room table, her face pale, eyes puffy and red from crying. I stood there for a moment, taking in the sight of her. She looked broken, not that it stirred any sympathy in me. If anything, it fueled my determination. "We need to talk," I said, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and fear. "Alex, I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Then don't say anything." I walked over, pulling out a chair and sitting down across from her. "I already know everything." Her breath hitched. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. Mistake? I interrupted, my voice hard. You lost your wedding ring and mistakenly left it in Evan's car. Is that what you're calling it? Or maybe it was a mistake every time you two decided to betray me behind my back. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't care. She had played the victim for long enough. Alex, please. I didn't mean for this to happen. It just. Spare me the sob story, Savannah, I said coldly, standing up. I'm not interested in hearing how sorry you are. You're only sorry because you got caught. But don't worry, you won't have to feel guilty for long. She looked up at me, confusion flickering across her face. What do you mean? I've already started the paperwork. We're done, Savannah. I want a divorce. The words hit her like a punch, and for a moment, I almost felt satisfaction seeing her crumble under their weight. Alex, no, please. We can work through this. I made a mistake, but we've been through so much together. You can't just throw it all away. You're the one who threw it away when you crawled into bed with my best friend, I snapped. We're finished, and you'll be hearing from my lawyer soon. Her face twisted with desperation. You can't just leave me like this. I leaned in, my voice low and menacing. Watch me. The next evening came quickly. The tension between Savannah and me had only grown worse, but she wasn't stupid enough to provoke a fight. She knew the divorce papers were coming, and if she had any sense left, she'd tread carefully. When Evan arrived, I could see the unease in his eyes as he walked through the door. Savannah was sitting on the couch, silent, her expression carefully neutral. This wasn't going to be the friendly get-together he was expecting. I poured drinks and led them both into the dining room, where the tension was palpable. Savannah kept her head down, avoiding Evan's gaze. He, on the other hand, was trying to act casual, as if nothing was wrong, but the way his eyes darted between us betrayed him. So, I said, raising my glass, to old friends, and to new beginnings. Evan raised his glass awkwardly, but Savannah didn't move. She just stared at her drink, knowing full well what was coming. I've been thinking a lot about friendship lately, I continued, swirling the whiskey in my glass. It's funny how trust works, isn't it? You think you know someone, think you can rely on them, and then you find out they've been sleeping with your wife. The silence was deafening. Savannah's face went pale, and Evan's hand froze mid-air, his glass inches from his lips. Alex, Evan started, but I cut him off. Don't. Just don't. I stood up, leaning forward across the table. You both disgust me. You had the nerve to do this behind my back, to lie to my face, and now you want to sit here and pretend like nothing happened. Savannah's voice trembled as she finally spoke. Please, Alex, don't do this. But it was already done. They had no idea what was coming next. This was just the beginning. The silence at the table is suffocating. Evan's hand is still frozen mid-air, his face a shade of white that I've never seen before. Savannah's lips tremble as she stares down at her untouched drink, knowing full well that there's no escape from the mess they've created. I'm done playing games with them. The calm before the storm is over. So, tell me, Evan, I say, breaking the tension, my voice laced with sarcasm. How long has it been going on between you two? I mean, you've had plenty of time to plan your little rendezvous behind my back. Evan drops his glass onto the table with a shaky hand. He tries to speak, but the words stick in his throat like a bad lie that even he can't force out. Alex, man, it's not what you think, he stammers, the panic evident in his voice. I didn't mean. Didn't mean what, Evan? I snap, standing up and slamming my palms onto the table. Didn't mean to sleep with my wife. Didn't mean to betray me, after everything we've been through. Do you even understand what you've done? Savannah looks up, her eyes red and swollen. She's been crying for days now, but the pity I might have felt once has long since evaporated. Her voice is soft, almost pitiful, as she tries to defend herself. Alex, please, she pleads. I made a mistake. We both did. But it doesn't have to end like this. We can talk about it, fix it. Fix it? I laugh, the sound bitter and cold. You want to fix this? There's nothing to fix, Savannah. You ruined it. Both of you. You think I can just forget what you've done? Savannah reaches out to touch my arm, but I pull away, her touch now feeling like poison. Please, she whispers, her voice cracking. We can make things right. Make things right? I spit, stepping back from the table. There's no coming back from this. And don't think for a second that I'm going to let either of you walk away from this unscathed. Evan stands up slowly, his face pale as he raises his hands, trying to calm me down. Alex, let's not do anything rash. We've been friends for a long time. I know I screwed up, but we can work this out. Let's just talk, all right? I can't help but laugh at the sheer audacity of his words. Talk. You want to talk after everything? You think a few words are going to fix this? You slept with my wife, Evan. You both did. And now you expect me to just sit here and talk it out like it's a misunderstanding. I grab the whiskey bottle from the table and pour myself another drink, ignoring the shaking in my hands. No, Evan. Talking is over. Now, we're going to settle this my way. I don't sleep that night. My mind is buzzing with the possibilities of how I'm going to make them both pay. Kicking them out of my life isn't enough. I need more. They need to feel the sting of betrayal as deeply as I have, and I know just how to deliver it. The next morning, Savannah is still at the house, lingering around like a ghost in the halls, unsure of her place anymore. She tries to approach me as I sit in the kitchen, sipping my coffee, but I don't even look up from my cup. Alex, please, we need to talk. I've already told you, I say without looking at her. There's nothing left to talk about. But we can't just end things like this. Yes, we can. I set my coffee down and finally meet her gaze, my expression hard as stone. You made your choices, Savannah. Now you're going to live with the consequences. Tears well up in her eyes again, but I don't let myself feel anything. This woman, who I thought was my partner, my wife, had chosen to throw it all away for a fling with my best friend. Her tears mean nothing now. You need to pack your things, I say, my voice icy. You're leaving today. Her mouth opens, but no words come out at first. She's processing the finality of it all, realizing that this is it. I can see the desperation bubbling beneath the surface. Where am I supposed to go? She whispers, as if she's suddenly the victim in all this. I don't care. Go to Evan, if he'll have you, I say, my words sharp and cutting. I'm done with both of you. I head to work, the gears of my revenge plan grinding in my head. It's not just about kicking her out. That's too easy. There's something bigger at play here, and it's time to hit them where it really hurts. Over the past few weeks, Savannah had been careless. I had noticed her keeping some documents locked away, taking long phone calls at odd hours. Curious, I had done my digging. Savannah was far from an innocent woman, she had debts, ones I wasn't supposed to know about. And now, those debts were going to be her undoing. At lunch, I take out my phone and make a call to a contact I'd kept for years, a lawyer who specializes in situations exactly like this. Hey, it's Alex. I need you to start drafting those divorce papers. But listen, I need more than that. I need to ensure that she walks away with nothing. Can we do that? There's a pause on the other end, and then a calm, calculating voice responds, "We can make that happen. Just send me the details." I hang up, feeling a sense of grim satisfaction. Savannah had no idea what was coming. The debts, the financial instability she had tried so hard to keep hidden from me, they were about to become her worst nightmare. And Evan? Well, he was next in line. Later that evening, I'm sitting at my desk when I get a text from Evan. It's short, but I can read the desperation in his words. "Alex, can we talk? Please. I don't want to lose our friendship over this. We made a mistake. Let's just sort it out." I stare at the message for a long moment, the temptation to lash out almost overwhelming. But no. Not yet. Let him stew in his guilt a little longer. There's more to come. Instead of responding, I simply put my phone down and lean back in my chair, a plan fully formed in my mind. Savannah's betrayal was the first domino to fall, but this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. I walk into the house later that night, and Savannah's things are packed by the door. She stands there, watching me with wide eyes, her fingers playing nervously with the strap of her purse. "I'm going now," she says softly, her voice fragile. I nod, saying nothing as she heads for the door. But as she turns the handle, I finally speak. "Don't think for a second this is over, Savannah. You'll regret everything. Trust me." She pauses for a moment, her breath catching, but she doesn't respond. She simply walks out, leaving behind the wreckage of what we once had. And I smile. This was only the beginning. The days after Savannah left were quiet, almost too quiet. The house felt empty without her, but I welcomed the silence. It gave me space to think, to refine my plan. Every breath I took was filled with the cold determination to make them pay. Both of them. They had turned my life into a farce, and now it was time to return the favor, in the most brutal way possible. I had all the pieces in place. Savannah had underestimated me, thinking she could leave quietly, hoping I'd let her slip away. But she didn't know the extent of what I had uncovered. She thought I'd just let her disappear into her new life with Evan, but I was one step ahead. I paid a visit to Savannah's office the day after she left. I had always stayed out of her business affairs, but now I had every reason to dive in. Her debt wasn't a secret anymore, and I knew exactly how deep she was in. A few phone calls to her clients, some carefully worded questions, and I had all the dirt I needed. She had been siphoning money from a joint account I didn't even know existed, using it to cover personal expenses and investments gone wrong. All of it hidden from me. I pulled strings, called in favors from my lawyer, and in a matter of days, I had frozen all her accounts. She would have nothing by the time I was done. A week later, Evan texted again. He was growing desperate, and I could tell. He wanted to meet, talk things through, salvage whatever semblance of friendship he thought was left. He didn't realize that any chance of reconciliation had died the moment I found that ring in his car. I agreed to meet him. Why not let him think I was willing to hear him out? The real fun hadn't even started yet. We met at a bar we used to frequent, a place that had once held good memories but now felt tainted. Evan was already sitting at the counter when I arrived, nursing a beer and looking more worn out than I'd ever seen him. "Alex," he said, standing up when he saw me, "thanks for agreeing to meet." "I really..." "Save it," I cut him off, sliding onto the stool beside him. "I didn't come here to hear more excuses." He shifted uncomfortably, running a hand through his hair. "Look, man, I know I messed up. I don't expect you to forgive me, but we've known each other for years. This was never supposed to happen." I stared at him, letting the weight of my silence settle between us. The tension was palpable, and I could see the sweat beading on his forehead. Good. He deserved to sweat. How long, Evan? I finally asked, my voice low and controlled. How long were you screwing my wife? He winced at the harshness of the words but didn't flinch away. It started a few months ago. I swear, Alex, it was never serious. It was just a mistake. I couldn't help but laugh. A bitter, hollow laugh that echoed through the nearly empty bar. A mistake. You slept with my wife for months, and you want to call it a mistake. Evan's face flushed with shame. I don't know what else to call it. I'm sorry, Alex. I'll do anything to make it right. Make it right? I repeated, my voice sharp. There's nothing you can do to fix this, Evan. You took everything from me, and now you're going to pay. His eyes widened slightly, and for the first time, real fear crossed his face. What do you mean? I leaned in closer, lowering my voice to a near whisper. I've already frozen Savannah's accounts. By the time she realizes what's happened, she'll be penniless. All the money she siphoned, all the lies she told, it's over. And you? You're next. Wait, Alex, hold on, Evan stammered, panic creeping into his voice. You didn't think I'd find out about your little side hustle, did you? I said, enjoying the growing look of horror on his face. All those investments you made, the shady deals you tried to keep hidden. I know everything, Evan. And I've already started to unravel your life, piece by piece. You can't do this, he gasped, his voice barely above a whisper. You have no right. Oh, I have every right, I snarled, my anger finally bubbling over. You thought you could betray me and walk away unscathed. You thought there wouldn't be consequences. He stood up abruptly, knocking over his beer in the process. Alex, stop. You don't have to do this. We can work something out. But I was done talking. I had waited long enough to watch him squirm, and now it was time to end this charade once and for all. I stood up and threw a few bills on the counter. We're done, Evan. Don't contact me again. And if you try to interfere with anything I've set in motion, you'll regret it. Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked out of the bar, leaving Evan standing there, a broken man. He had no idea how deep the hole he was in went. And by the time he figured it out, it would be too late. I headed home, feeling the weight of my revenge settling comfortably on my shoulders. But there was one last thing I needed to do. The final nail in the coffin for both Savannah and Evan. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. Hello? The voice on the other end was sharp, authoritative, exactly what I needed. It's Alex, I said, my voice steady. I need you to leak something for me. Something that will ruin two people's lives. There was a brief pause, and then a low chuckle. I see. Send me the details. It'll be done. The next day, everything came crashing down for them. Savannah's business was exposed, all her financial misdeeds, the lies she'd told to keep herself afloat. Her reputation, her clients, her entire career disintegrated in a matter of hours. She would never recover from this. Evan's dirty deals followed soon after, plastered across every local news outlet. The fallout was swift and brutal. I heard through mutual acquaintances that they both tried to reach out to me, but I ignored every attempt. I didn't need to hear their cries for help, their desperate pleas. It was done. Weeks later, I received divorce papers in the mail. Savannah had signed them, no fight, no plea for reconciliation. She knew she had lost everything, and there was no coming back from the ruin I had left in my wake. I signed them without hesitation, knowing that this chapter of my life was over. The betrayal had cut deep, but my revenge had cut deeper. I dropped the signed papers in the mailbox and walked away, knowing I would never see Savannah or Evan again. We were strangers now, bound only by the hatred that betrayal had carved into our hearts. And that was fine by me.